Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today on first day. Well, first day of the, I guess, not the total first day of the Summer Learning Academy, but for the sort of the IT camp, as it was formerly known as. Things kicked off today, so thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Mario. I am one of the technology integration leaders for the Halifax Regional Center for Education. So my role is to support teachers and students with integrating technology. And one of the probably more popular tools, diverse tools out there is Flipgrid. So I thought I'd take some time to talk a little about Flipgrid, how you can use it. I'll do a quick little demo of it as well. So I know this is being recorded, so you can certainly, if you're not able to follow along, no worries, it'll be recorded and posted at some point down the road, so you'll be able to follow along. I will share my slide deck as well with you, or it'll be posted through the Summer Learning Academy website, and we'll make sure you get all the resources you need. So as well, you can tweet. I know everybody loves to see all the learning happening during Summer Learning Academy, so you can use the hashtag SLA2021NS, and certainly I'll follow along after this session as well. So Flipgrid is, like I said, it's a really great tool. I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the great benefits, ways that you can use it in the classroom. It's a P to 12 tool. There's no, and really across any subject. So it has lots of great benefits for applications in the classroom. So it is a tool that's really great for UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It has some built-in accessibility features, which I'll show you as well. So you can do like closed captioning. There's a built-in immersive reader, and I'll show you that when I show you how to sort of set up Flipgrid. It's a multi-modal tool, so meaning there's no kind of one way to kind of come at it. There's so many different ways you can use video, you can use just voice, you can do screencast. There's so many different ways you can sort of use the tool. And again, I will highlight all these for you as we go through the session. Certainly connects with our youth today and sort of that engagement, so the youth culture. So a lot of your students, depending on the grade level maybe, but a lot of them are kind of into things like TikTok, Snapchat. And I'm not saying those are optimal learning tools, but they are sort of ways that they connect with each other. And so there are ways you can use Flipgrid to kind of create sort of TikTok or Snapchat type videos, while at the same time they can demonstrate their understanding and show their learning. So kind of relating to sort of mediums that they're used to. As I mentioned, it's cross-curricular, so I've seen it used in every subject matter, from phys ed to science, math, arts, music. There's no, whether you're teaching French or as a second language or English as an additional language, there's really no one spot it fits into. It fits into so many different areas. Works on any device, which is great as well. But on mobile devices, you will need the app. It's free, so there's nothing to pay for there, but you can use the app if it's on a mobile device or on a phone, whatever it might be. It's great for formative assessments, and again, we'll look at some examples for that as well. And it kind of hits on those 6 C's around communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, citizenship, culture, all those things. So lots of great ways that the Flipgrid sort of covers a lot of areas here. So like I said, there's multiple uses for Flipgrid. It's not just sort of a one sort of trick pony. So kind of the main way we see it used a lot is through video feedback. So what it is, so as a teacher, you can post a question, whether it's something, in depth, a way to sort of gauge understanding, an exit ticket, whatever it might be, you're posting something for the students to respond to. And so a lot of times we see this, it's being used as you're posing a question, the students respond to that question through video, okay? And there's a whole bunch of settings we'll look at how you want to set that up. But there's other ways you can kind of have students sort of demonstrate their learning and understanding. So again, you might have students that don't like to be on camera. So instead of, Flipgrid's great, so you don't have to force students in front of the class, or the ones that don't like to raise their hand, but they might like to respond sort of privately to you. But then you might get the students that don't mind responding privately to you, but don't really like to be on camera, so you can record just audio. But there's also like filters and different things you can do. So even if they are on camera, they can put like a smiley face over their head. There's lots of different things that you can do. You can use it as discussion or message boards, sort of offline. We've seen a lot through when we're doing at-home learning, asynchronous work. It's great students and teachers to connect that way as well. There's a built-in whiteboard with it as well, so students could be recording their screen, maybe solving a math problem and verbally explaining how they're solving that, and sort of writing out an answer or whatever it might be. You can also do screencasting with it as well. Okay, there are other tools that probably do it better, but I'm just sort of showing you that other ways that you can use Flipgrid. And you can also app smash with it. And what I mean by that is Flipgrid combined with other apps, and I'll show you there's a whole list of them. You can kind of take things to the next level. So not just using Flipgrid on its own, it combines with other apps. And one of the great things I do like about it, as you see at the bottom there, is that you can set it to be fully moderated. So what that means is if you pose a question, maybe just something simple like, hey, did you understand today's lesson? Or, how was your weekend? Whatever it might be. When students respond to that, whether it's through video or just recording their voice, you can set it that you see those responses first before anybody else does. And it's really what you want to do with it. You can have it as sort of a classroom discussion, or maybe you want others to respond to others' answers. Maybe you're doing a little book study, whatever it might be, and you want students to reply to one another. So instead of being sort of open and a free-for-all, you can see the response of the student first, and then you could release that, and then others would be able to see those responses and reply to them. You don't even have to do that at all. You could have it that just, you know what, I just want to hear from each of my students, but I don't need others to see those responses. So you can have it fully moderated where only you, the teacher, see the responses. You can reply back to them, give them feedback, and they would see that, and it's sort of a one-on-one communication. So a couple things before we kind of jump into Flipgrid here and show you a little bit how to use it. So just remember, it's about the task, not the tool. So kind of in that backwards design model, we want to think about, let's not try to use Flipgrid and fit it into something. Working backwards, we can kind of see, okay, this is what the task is, and then is Flipgrid one of the tools that we can use? And you'll see that because it's so dimensional, it will kind of work in a lot of different ways. Start at your own comfort level. If you're new to Flipgrid, don't feel you have to, do something high level right away. Like I said, you could start simple. Just so you get used to the platform, you could just post a topic just to say, hey, say hello, or something really simple. The students are just replying to you, so you can see what it's like to see the responses, how you can provide feedback, reply back to them, whatever it might be. So just start with something simple. It doesn't always have to be like something that you're going to assess or something curriculum related. You could just ask, hey, what's your favorite food? Just to sort of get that discussion going. At the same time, if your students are new to Flipgrid, it gets them used to replying and using the platform without worrying about, okay, this is being assessed, I gotta really work on my answer. And then once you start using it, try to mix it up a little bit. So instead of always using it as, I'll pose a question, my students will respond. I'll pose it. Try like different things like book talks, and I'll give a lot of examples of how you can use this. Try to mix it up so it's not always the same way you're using Flipgrid. And you can practice. One of the great things with Flipgrid is when you create a topic, it allows you to do like a student view. So you could actually go in and reply to your own question, just so you can kind of see how it looks like, or even just share it with a colleague if you can at school, and they can reply and you can kind of see what that looks like. And mistakes will happen, and anything can be easily fixed. So, don't sweat it. That's all part of the learning process. So I'm just sharing this slide here. Now, this wasn't created by me. This is from somebody who I follow on Twitter. And the only reason I'm including this is because Flipgrid often does updates, and usually every year in June or July, I can't remember when it is, they have this big Flipgrid live event, and they announce their big updates. And it's usually August 1st. So just because we're almost at August 1st, these are updates. So if you went to Flipgrid today, and just to kind of look at it and play with it, and then you kind of started in September with students, you will notice some differences. So I haven't gone through to look at what all these are, but there's some important ones. You can add backdrops. So before, you always had to have your background showing. So you can add different backdrops. You can add music. So you can, even when students record, we'll look at this as well, they can edit what they're recording in terms of their responses. So there's lots of, you see all these features that are coming. So I haven't had a chance to explore them all yet, but there's even talking about some three-dimensional things. I'm not even quite sure what that is. So lots of great, they're always sort of updating the app. They're really active on Twitter, or even their discussion boards. I've posted questions, and whether it's people from Flipgrid themselves or just the community of people that use Flipgrid, you always find people that have some expertise and they can share updates with you or answer questions. So I'll just include that slide there as these are updates that are coming up. So the way Flipgrid works is there's kind of three I guess, I don't know if level is the right word, but three sort of steps. So one is kind of the teacher creates a group, and the group is kind of, think of it as like your overarching topic. So depending on what you teach, what grade level, like you might, if you're in elementary, you might have a math group, and then you might have a language arts group, then you might have a science group where you teach those subjects to the students. Where in other grade levels, depending on what you teach, you might, maybe you're an English language arts teacher, so you might have a group called like speaking and listening, or you might have a group called book talks, or you might have a group. So it's really, there's no right or wrong way to use this. But it's really a way for you just to kind of group is, just think of it as the overarching theme of your Flipgrid. And then below each group is where you have your topics. So like I said, I could have a math topic, and then within that I might have, fractions and geometry and multiplication. So it's kind of like the subcategories of that large group. So that's kind of how topics work. So it's kind of like the large topic, and then within it you could have multiple topics. So there's no limit to how many topics you can have. Or you might just have, if you teach grades 7, you might have like a 701 class, and then within it, that's your group, and then within it you might have just different topics as things come up. So it's really how you want to organize it. There's no right or wrong way. And the final step is where the students reply to whatever topics you're posting. Okay, and I'm going to take you through these steps to show you what these all look like. Again, I'm not going to go through all these, but just lots of other examples of how you can use Flipgrid, but I'll share some of these examples as we go through it. What I'm going to do is, I also have step-by-step. So I am going to show you now live how to use Flipgrid, but in my slide deck, which will be shared out, I have step-by-step screenshots that will take you through that as well. So I am going to pop out of this, and maybe I will see if there are any questions before I jump into showing a little bit how Flipgrid works. All right, let's wait a second or two, see if any come in through the chat. And if not, I will jump into Flipgrid. All right, and if some come up along the way, I will certainly pop back over and have a look before we wrap up. All right, I'm going to jump over to this screen here, and this is where you can kind of come in and get started with Flipgrid. So just simply go into flipgrid.com. And if you do not have an account, there is an educator sign up. So it is free. It's one of those rare tools that actually Flipgrid used to be paid. Then they were bought out by Microsoft, so it became free. We usually often see the opposite, where something's free, it's really cool, people kind of jump into it, then they start offering some paid versions. So this one's actually been the opposite, where it started off as paid and now it's free. It's been free for a few years now. On the main page as well, I talked about Flipgrid Live, so you can actually go back and watch the recording of that event. So if you're really interested in seeing what the updates are, and I'm sure there's a blog post as well that explains all the updates. So because I have an account, I am going to log in. So I'm going to take you through what it's like to create a group, create a topic, and then what the students will see as you kind of go through those steps. So I'm just going to log in. So Flipgrid has a single sign-on with Google, which is handy, and it'll be the same with students as well. You'll notice there's other login options here. So I will talk about how you get your students in. I mean, one way is through a code, but one way is just you can actually integrate to Google Classroom, which I'll show you, talk about, or they can just log in with their Genespa. So there's lots of different ways, and really what works easiest for you. There's no really right or wrong way. So I'm going to sign in with Google because that's what I have mine set up as. And then it'll take me into Flipgrid. All right, so as I mentioned, groups are the sort of overarching topics you have. So if you notice on my screen, I have 20 groups. So there's really no limit into how many groups you have. So I use it in a variety of ways. I use it with students in the classroom. I use it with teachers, and if I'm doing professional development, maybe is depending on the activity we're doing. So there's lots of different ways that you can use it. So all of my topics here, so I could have, because you could use Flipgrid in 1 year with a class, and then you kind of want to, at the end of that school year, you don't want to delete everything because you kind of maybe want to keep it. Maybe there's some good exemplars in there. You can kind of hide groups as well, so you can kind of keep things hidden. So you can kind of, instead of deleting things, you can kind of have things open and closed. But I'll kind of go through and take you through sort of the setup of what it's, creating a group and then creating a topic and then what the students see. So the first thing I do is I'm going to, right up here, it says create a group. So I will create a group. Now I am going to get some default options here. So the first one is you can really customize it. So let's say I'm a grade 6 teacher and I want to create I'm going to kind of have some something for science. I'm going to use Flipgrid in my science curriculum. So again, I can go in and change the cover. I can go in, so I have to give the group a name. So this is just my general group. So this is going to be grade 6 Mario Science, just for something. So again, you can call it whatever you want. Again, this is going to be active because, say, I want my students to actively go in and use this. So this is the first step that's going to kind of make you have to make a decision here, okay? So there's 3 ways. So when I end up creating this Flipgrid group and subsequent topics to go with it, my students have to be able to access that. So I want to be able to assign something to them where they can kind of go in and reply to questions or discussions that we're going to have. So if you're using Google Classroom is probably the easiest way. So it just syncs with your class roster. So that's one way to do it. Now I'm going to do it a little bit different way because I'm not going to use classrooms that I have. So I would totally avoid, well, I shouldn't say totally avoid, but this is probably my last choice, student usernames, because that means you are creating username and passwords for your students. This might be useful if maybe like you have students just coming in grade primary or grade 1, and maybe they haven't used Google a whole lot, so you can't really use Google Classroom yet. So you could create usernames for them, but it's a little bit more work on your end. The other option is student email. Okay, so I'm going to just use this as an example, but again, whatever I would use, probably Classroom first if you're using Google Classroom, and student email is probably my secondary option. And what it's saying is when I click student email, it's asking me what emails addresses am I going to allow to use my Flipgrid. So this is where if they're using their Genespa's emails, I can just simply put an @gnsps.ca. And that means anyone with a genespes.ca email can access my Flipgrid. Now, that being said, I'm only going to be assigning it to my students. So even though it is kind of open that way, it just means that that email address can go in there. So if they were at home and maybe they're on a device where a personal Gmail was logged into, it wouldn't allow them to get into it because it wouldn't recognize the @gmail.com email. So I'm just going to use that. But like I said, I would probably use Google Classroom, especially if you're using Google Classroom. And then down the bottom here, you have how often do you want to get notified? So what's going to happen is, so let's say you post a top question for your students, and you want to just, instead of having to go into Flipgrid, every so often to see, okay, who responded or not, you can get automatic notifications sent to your email, and the email being what email you used to create your account. So you could have it daily. So what will happen is just kind of every morning, I'll get a little summary that 10 students replied to this topic, and then I can go in and I can see who replied. You can do it weekly. It kind of depends, I guess. Is it, if it's a topic that maybe you don't want to check in each week, you can do that. There are other options of every new video and comment. So again, that's really up to you. If you're in an elementary classroom, you're seeing the same group of students all the time, maybe that's not too bad, because maybe you're just doing this kind of once a week or whatever it might be. So that's possible. But if you're in like a junior high or high school, or maybe you're seeing hundreds of students in a given week, that means you're going to get notifications every time somebody goes in and uses it or posts something. So it's kind of really up to you and what you're comfortable with, and you can always modify that. So this is just for this group that I'm creating. I might start daily, and then I could kind of maybe once I get, depending on how I'm using it, you can kind of decide. So I have my group created, just called Grade 6 Science, and I'm going to hit Create Group. So once I do that, it gives me a little prompt here. So I could actually share this group out right now to my class. What that means is they would be able to, anything I create within Grade 6 Science, they would be able to access it. And I could share that in a couple of ways. There's a QR code option. So again, I often see this option being used in lower elementary, or maybe if you had iPads or other mobile devices, where the students maybe aren't signing in, or they are signing in, but they can kind of scan the QR code to get to it. That's kind of one way. Google Classroom, again, we can share to Google Classroom. These other options, I wouldn't really, you can embed it in a website. We don't really use Microsoft Teams so much. Remind, I know some teachers do use Remind, so you could, potentially use that and then post to Twitter. But I mean, you're kind of putting it out there for the public to see. So I would just stick to Google Classroom. But right now, this just created my group, but I don't want to quite share my group yet because I want to create a topic and kind of share that with them. But I could potentially share the group out, and that means every time I create a topic within my group, my students just have to go to that group and they can see everything that's within it. Okay, so again, I'm just going to close that out. All right, so I have here it is here, Grade 6 Science created. I did mention you can at any time, there's always going to see buttons here to view as a student. So if you just want to get a sense of what it looks like for a student, you can always click that. But I want to create a topic first before I show you what that looks like. So right now I am going to create a topic. There are some pre-made topics you can browse from, okay? So again, there's some like quick check-ins. Like these are just kind of templates you can use, but you can modify them. So it could be a check-in, it's asking, how was your week, or what did you learn today? Would you rather? So, sometimes just fun games like that. So these are sort of some pre-made ones, and you can browse the almost 40,000 topics that are in the community as well. And I'll show you where you can access that as well. But I'm going to just create my own topic. All right. So again, the prompts are pretty, they're pretty detailed enough that you can kind of go through and see what you have to do here. So right now I have my Grade 6 Science, and now within it, I'm going to create a topic, something a little bit more specific than Grade 6 Science. So maybe we're going to talk about, I don't know, what can we talk about? We can talk about severe weather. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit, something more specific than just Grade 6 Science. So my title is called Severe Weather, and now here is my prompt. So what is it that I want my students to do within this severe weather? So maybe I want them just to share their thoughts. Maybe we're just kind of doing I'm just trying to gather, what do they know about severe weather, or, the environment, or whatever it might be, global warming. I could, I could put any topic in here. So I could just say something like, share what you know about, because maybe this is a topic we're going to start doing in our class, severe weather. Okay, I could be more specifically, what is it? What do you know? What are words that come to mind when you hear about severe weather? So I could be a little bit more specific, but just for time's sake, I was going to tell them to share what they know about severe weather. So now I could just have this as a text-based prompt. Okay, so that means the students would click on it. They would see this question here. But, in that model of UDL, I probably want to, add some other ways students could get that. So, you might have students that might have a little bit difficulty in deciphering that sentence. So I could record a video of myself doing just verbally saying the answer, or providing a bit more context to it, okay? So you could record yourself. There are other things you can do. You could add a video. So maybe I could add a YouTube video. So I could say, watch this video on severe weather, and then afterwards, give some keywords, or what are some key things people should know about severe weather. So you can kind of do it a lot of different ways. And you notice as you scroll across, there's tons of different things you can do to include as part of your prompt, okay? So I will go in and record a video. Now, I'm going to try this, but because my mic and camera is being used to do this session, I don't know if it's going to echo or what's going to happen because it's trying to use my mic and camera in two different spots. But let's just say I'm going to record a little video of myself explaining what I want my students to do. So I'm just going to click record video. I'm going to allow my microphone. So as you see, I get this is my Flipgrid video now. So I have some options here. I could, I don't have to have myself on video. I could put a mic only. So it could be an audio recording of myself explaining the question, okay? But anyways, I'll just do a record video. I'm going to see what happens here. Hi, everyone. Please tell me what you know about severe weather. All right, so it looks like that worked. So, oops, I keep playing there. So I'm going to hit next because I recorded my video. I can do a cover video, so I can take a selfie. If I want to do a selfie myself, I could upload a photo. I could add a name tag, whatever. It's just kind of like a little screenshot you can put in there. I'll just hit confirm. All right, so what happens now is, as you see, I have my title, severe weather. I have my text-based prompt of what I want my students to do, but I also included a video. So again, students could play the video to hear my explanation of what I want them to do, or they could read the question, whatever kind of works for them. There are some other permissions. I'm just going to kind of highlight them. So this is a guest password. So again, this would only be the case if you're ever doing something with Flipgrid outside of your classroom with like not with your students. So I've never really personally used this myself, but again, that's just an option there. So this is the important one here. So topic moderation, and I can't remember if it's on or off by default. But so mine, you can set it to be one or the other. So I always have mine to be on by default. And so what that means is the video. So when my students see this prompt about severe weather, when they respond to it, I get to see it first, okay? So it really depends, again, what is the end goal you're trying to do? Do you want students to see other students' answers, to maybe hear what they have to say about severe weather? Or is it just you're just trying to get some one-on-one insight from a student? So it's really up to you. If you're new to Flipgrid, I would start with topic moderation on till you get comfortable. To your students, kind of you set those parameters and routines and rules with your students so they know how it works. And then you can decide when you want to start releasing, relinquishing some of that control. There's options for comments. So that's allowing not you yourself, you can always comment on other responses, but allowing students to. Again, that's really what you're comfortable with. So again, if it's more of a discussion, I might allow video comments to other people's posts. But again, I'll just leave it none for now. You can have closed captions, and you can decide the language as well. So, depending on what language you want it to be in. And then you have options for recording time. So that means how long do you want to give your students to record an answer? So you can't pick any time. There's sort of some default ones in there. You can go as low as 15 seconds and as high as 10 minutes. And so again, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. I always like to give extra time just so they're not rushed or cut off. But I really let my students know that, if I'm giving you 5 minutes, maybe I really only just need you to 2 minutes, okay? Don't feel you have to use the whole time. So you can define those parameters with your students, what you know your students best, so what works for them. So this is a pretty, I just wanted to know I don't need a whole big lecture on severe weather. I just want to know what they just want to get a sense of what they know. So I might just do a minute and a half. And then as I go through, oh, here it is right here. So see, it says save changes to my default settings. So I can always have it that my topic moderation's on, but it'll also save this default to be 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay, you can always change it, but you can adjust it as you see fit. And then down here, there's some more options. Now, a lot of these more options I don't ever use, but I'll just sort of quickly highlight them. So you can add links in here to things. So if I wanted students to go to a website to look at some information, then reply, you can do things like that. You can add attachments. You can define when you want it to be open and closed so it's active. And I could decide, okay, well, it's showing today's date. I could have it close at a particular date. So maybe I'm going to give them like 2 days to respond to this, or you can just leave it open. It's really up to you. Again, you get another prompt of your notifications. I have daily. And then the other ones down here that I really, I don't really even touch these at all, except this one here. And again, I have it set to my preferences, so I can't remember if it's on or off by default, but it allows likes to videos. So that, depending on this, I don't really like to get into that with students where they can see each other's videos if you're opening up that way, and then, they're trying to get likes and things like that. I try to avoid that, but that is an option that's there, so I just want you to be aware of that. But, I do allow video editing. So, if a student, I try to tell them, record, you make a mistake, don't stop and go back and record and let that happen through your front. Just record. If you stumble in the middle, let it keep recording, and then pick up where you left off, and then they can trim parts out. So it's I kind of let them have that option to video editing, just so they're not always going back in there and trying it 5 or 6 different times. And then, so that's really it. I mean, you can have it set that videos to be downloaded and shared by their owners. That means the students could have the option to, if they record something themselves, they can download that video themselves and keep it. So again, really up to you, no right or wrong answer. And when I'm done, I'm just going to hit create topic. So now my topic is ready. Again, I could share this link to my class. I can post it in Google Classroom. I could have it as a QR code. Really, however you communicate with your students, how you want them to complete this Flipgrid is entirely up to you. So that's really what that does. I could, like I said, that's the link, or I can post a classroom, or they just go to my Google Classroom and they click the link from there. But I will show you what the students see as they kind of go through it. So I'm just going to click View as Student. So again, if the student, so here's the link that it was showing. So the students would either click that link through Google Classroom, wherever you post your stuff. They'll get this prompt here. They're going to join with Google, right? Because it's just a quick, simple sign on. And so they see this here. So you can see they have the question here, share what you know about weather. There's an immersive reader here that I can click on. So I could have it, you can see there's a play button. I could have it play back to me. You could have, there's a whole bunch of preferences. You could have it translate. So if you have students where English is an additional language, they could translate to their, the language that their mother tongue. So there's a lot of options here. So again, that's the built-in immersive reader, okay? And when they're done with that, they can just click X and come back. Here's the video I created. So the students could play the question, if they're not able to read that, they can play it back. Oops, I gotta go back in here. Sorry. Here's the video here. They can play the video, immersive reader, they can read the question. And now I have it to record a response. Okay, so the students now have, okay, here's the prompt. I gotta share what I know about weather. Okay, I'm the student. I'm gonna click record a response. And don't forget, record response does not always mean it has to be on camera, okay? So that's where they can kind of come into these more options. So I could just do a mic only, and if I do mic only, you see I just have the microphone. So I could just record myself giving an answer. There's options here to record my screen. So that would be more so if I was modeling something, I wanted to show something on my screen. In this case, I don't need to. There's a whole bunch of other things. There's little effects. Like I said, they could put text on their reply. They could draw something. They could add stickers. So maybe, they're recording themselves on camera. Maybe they want to put a sticker over their face, whatever it might be. There's even outside frames, like borders you can put around. So there's lots of things they can kind of get into. So you will probably find, I'll get off this just because that thing keeps going. You will probably find that if it's your student's first time, they're really going to some will really focus in on those little stickers and things like that. So, that's going to happen. And then, if they're more focused on that and not really giving an in-depth answer that you're looking for, then that's where the feedback comes into your teacher. You can reply to them within Flipgrid, provide comments, let them know, okay, let's try to focus a little more on your answer. Can you define this a little more clearly, whatever it might be. So a student has lots of options. You see I have 1.5 minutes to respond to my prompt. So the student, if they were just going to record themselves, they would just click this button. They get a little countdown. So as the student, I could be giving some responses here to what I think severe weather is, tornadoes, hurricanes. In Windsor yesterday, we had lots of quick flooding and hail, whatever it might be. So again, students can kind of go in and give responses. They can pause along the way. So if they just need to pause, collect their thoughts a little bit, then they can click that circle again to record. That I do find sometimes this throws students off a little bit because there's no actual button that says record. It's just kind of a circle. So you might have to tell them that that's the record button. A lot of them will figure it on their own. So they can go back in, record some more if they wanted to. And once they're done, they just hit next. It plays back. Okay, I get the captions in here. I'm just going to pause it for a sec. Okay, so again, they have options. They can edit this clip if in the middle whatever, something happened, I want to clip things off, or maybe I didn't stop recording soon enough. Okay, I can edit the end of my clip. So you see, so my clip is 19 seconds long. If the last 5 seconds were me just not talking and I forgot to hit stop, I can shrink that down. Okay, so again, I have that turned on for students, and it's really up to you. So you can have it that they're able to edit their clips. If they don't like their clip at all, they could delete it and then re-record again. That's also another option. So if I wanted to trim some of that last part of the clip, I can hit confirm. And so now you see, I guess, only clipped off 3 seconds. So now it's down to 16 seconds. So as they get the response, how they feel it should be, they can just click next. And now they have some options here. So their display name, they could, put their name in if they want. There's a few other options. There's no link I'm really putting in. I could put a little description, that's okay. And then I just hit submit. And once it's hit submit, the teacher receives that on the teacher end. So as you see, I'm just going to go back here for 1 sec. If I'm on the teacher side of it, let me go back to. So on the teacher side of it, as you see, I have in my grade 6 science, I have a topic called severe weather, and then here I have a 1 response. So as a teacher, I can just click on this. I could review the response given by the student, and I could give a recording reply back, or I can type some feedback or comments, whatever it might be. And it has this little hand here, if you're able to see that, and that just means that the topic is moderated. So that just means I'm only seeing it. Once I view it and provide feedback, entirely up to you as a teacher. Do you want to release it for the rest of class to see, or is it just going to stay between you and the student? So that's kind of how Flipgrid works there. So maybe, again, I'll pause for a sec before I show a few other little things within Flipgrid, and then just see if there's any questions here. So I'll just kind of pop back on my stream. All right, so I do see that there are some questions that came in the chat, so I'll take some time to respond to them. So Carrie asked, do students need to make accounts? No, they don't need to make accounts. So there is the single sign-on with Google, so it just automatically logs in with Google. There is, on the flip side, you can create username and passwords for your students. That's just a little more time on your end. There is even options that you can upload a spreadsheet of created username and passwords, and it'll generate those for you. So there are other ways to do it. You can also make it like a password where you don't need an email to do it, and then they would click on the link and then have to enter a password. So that's the other way if you're not using any type of email. So there are other ways to do that. But like I said, if you are using Google, it's probably the easiest way. But if not, yeah, you could create usernames or just have the link and have a password, and the password could be something that they type in and respond. The only thing with that is, depending on the grade level of your students, if that password is shared out, that means it's open to anybody to get that link and then put in that password and they can go in. But that's maybe where, if you moderate, and there are some safety parameters you can use. Okay, so again, it's kind of what you're comfortable with. Limit of number of students you can have with a group, Michelle. I have not seen that. No, because really it's really drawing from either Google Classroom or you're just putting a link out there that your students can sign in to do. So there's no limit of how many people can join kind of a topic or a group in Flipgrid. Just keep in mind, if you do like a discussion type thing and you put it to the whole school and your school has 900 students, then you're going to get a lot of like videos and replies and things like that. So it could get messy that way, but yeah, there is no limit. Oh, thank you, Anne. I sort of scroll down far enough. Yes. Do you answer my question for me? Thank you, Anne. Perfect. All right. Great questions. I'm just going to kind of pop over to a few other little things on Flipgrid that I just wanted to show you about, and then I'll wrap things up with some ideas you can kind of get started with. So one of the things I do want to just show you here, when you log into Flipgrid, so discussion is what you have on the go. There's something called the Disco library, Disco meaning short for discovery. And these are video or sort of Flipgrid activities that people, teachers, users create and make them open for anybody to pull in and use. And if you pull in and use them, you can edit them in any way. So that's the kind of the community around Flipgrid is if you're putting something out there for others to use, you're giving those permissions to, they can take it and edit it. And I find that handy if you find like a really good math one, but maybe some of the language they use, it's coming from the States and we use different terminology. So there are different things that, you can kind of tweak and edit, but you can kind of go through and you can view them. You can view all topics. And when you view topics, you can see there's almost 40,000. You can select by subject area. You can select by community, meaning like grade level. Again, keep in mind, it's all based on whoever created it, what they put in those settings. So again, if you're a grade 5 teacher, and I'm a grade 5 teacher from Wisconsin, we might not have the same curriculum, or maybe we do what they do in grade 4. So it's really based on what the user who created it. So sometimes just searching a topic. So if I want to find something on fractions, I could do that. Okay, I get 271 topics, and then from there I might start filtering a little bit. Okay, so I kind of want something in the elementary range. Okay, so drop down to 182. Okay, so you can kind of do things like that. When you do that, you can see kind of how often it's been used. So sometimes, I'm not saying that's a foolproof way of knowing if it's good or not, but it does. If you see like, there's been up to 569 times it's used, that might give you a sense, okay, it's been used a lot, so there must be some good feedback around it. If you see one that says it's used one time, it doesn't mean that's not necessarily a good Flipgrid prompt that somebody created. It just means maybe it was just posted like yesterday, so it only has one use so far. So it kind of depends. So sometimes it does take some clicking to see what they're about. So you can click on it and you can see it gives a little, they kind of have a video here, an explanation of what it is. I could add this topic, and when I click add topic, I could add it to my group. Okay, so again, I can hit add group, and then I can decide if it's going to go into my grade 6 science one, which this probably wouldn't because it's math, but if I had like a grade 6 math group, I could add that in there. So you can go through, and once you add it, then you can go in and edit it. So I just kind of want to show you that those are that's just under the discovery or Disco library, it's called in there. There's also lots of help, built-in help as well, that you can use to pose questions. There's a discussion board, or just kind of looking through their FAQs. You can kind of go in and have a look at if you're just not sure how to do certain things. I'm just going to flip back to the last few slides here. So let me go back to present and turn my captions on. Oops. All right, so as I said, I kind of took you through how to create a group and topic, but I do have screenshots, and with a little bit of built-in, I put in a few of those extra things, just sort of things to keep in mind as you go through it, things to be aware about. You may notice, I didn't mention this earlier, when you create a new topic or new group, sometimes there's a default setting there called Hello, I Am, and that's just sort of a kind of like a, I don't know, it's just kind of like a blank one that's always in there, where the Flipgrid prompt is for students to just introduce themselves. So sometimes it comes in automatically. So if you notice there, you're like, I didn't create that. It's just a default saying they have. And I can't remember if there's a way to remove that or not. I'll have to double check that. But again, everything I took you through, I have screenshots with some information. I'm just going to kind of click through these. And then I have you to go through the student view, the Disco library, which I mentioned. But just kind of want to talk about last few final thoughts on Flipgrid, ways you can kind of get started with it. So this is one great one that a lot of teachers, I supported them kind of at the end of this year, but it's also, you can transition to the beginning of the year, where you're getting, you know, a lot of new students. Depending on what grade level you teach, you might not know any of the students at all. So Flipgrid is a great way for them to introduce themselves. So you could provide a Flipgrid prompt where you just want your students to just, you know, properly pronounce their name, which is really important. Tell a little bit about themselves, maybe some things they like, their hobbies. So kind of get you a little sense of, okay, these are my students, and I know a little bit about them as they're coming in the first day, and anything they want to share. So you can set up the Flipgrid and have it moderate, so and let them know that only you are going to see that. So I did a little bit with some teachers in June, where the students were doing this for the teachers they're going to have in September. But you know, if this is your first time using Flipgrid, you could set up for yourselves, for your students on day one, where you can have them tell a little about themselves. And you might do this in other activities. You might have them introduce themselves in the class, you know, complete some kind of desk work, whatever it might be. But Flipgrid is another way where they can do that as well. And again, up to them if they want to have their camera on or off. But as you can see, hopefully, that Flipgrid really connects to all types of all the curriculum. So in language arts, you can do reading responses, book talks, just brainstorming of ideas, poetry reads, reviews of books. So you could have the topic being like, you know, just books, whatever it might be. And as students read a book, they could, you know, show the book, have a picture of the book, and just give a review of that book. So then other students can go in and click on any of those book titles that they reviewed and hear reviews from the students within the classroom. Or you can even go bigger, and it could be like, you know, across the school, you know, whatever it might be. You could do persuasive videos, debates, would you rather. So lots of great connections there. In math, just ways that they can explain their thinking and reasoning and strategies they use. A lot of things do in math, like around which one doesn't belong. So you can have an image of 4 things, and they can explain which one doesn't belong in that series of 4, just modeling different strategies as well. Social studies, I mean, debates are not social studies specific, but just talking about current events, discussions, sharing information on various events. Science, you could have, you can actually do experiments. So you could set up, you know, if you're doing an experiment in a science classroom, and just sometimes you don't have a chance to get to all the groups equally, they could use Flipgrid to model a little bit what they did, what they learned in the science experiment, so they can do, and then you can review that after. So you might be able to check in a little bit with them during the class time, but then that also gives a little bit more information on how did their science experiment go, what did they learn, you know, whatever it might be. So just the ways that you can kind of, they can kind of do that work, and you can connect with them and see their learning. In phys ed, I've seen teachers use it for demonstrations of, or even students recording themselves how to do, you know, proper techniques around things or rules around a specific game. Displaying of artwork, so you can have students, you know, they create some artwork, but just talking about it. What is it this represents, or whatever it might be. Meet the teacher. So I've seen schools do it the opposite way, where they've created Flipgrids of the staff around the school, and parents are able to view that, or introductions with staff. It could be also digital portfolio. So throughout the year, students could be recording themselves talking about their work. So maybe highlighting some of their best work, things they encountered during the year, whatever it might be, reflections, goal setting, things they even like to learn about. So there's really endless possibilities, exit tickets. And then sometimes I always pose this question on testing. So things I know about, but I wasn't asked. So just kind of on some sort of assessment. Maybe didn't ask every type of possible question that there is, but a student really knew something about a topic. Just a way that they can kind of share their learning as well. So again, that's kind of a Flipgrid in a nutshell. So hopefully you get a sense of ways that you can use it. It's really, depending on what you teach, there's really no limit to how you can use in the classroom. Hopefully give you a sense of how to get started. And if not, I will, this recording will be posted. And at the same time, my slide deck will be shared to the Summer Learning Academy website. Again, I will just sort of pop over here to the chat again. I don't know if there's any questions or not. And if there isn't, I will certainly stick around for a few minutes. If not, appreciate you coming into my session. My contact information I will put in the chat as well if you want to reach out with any questions you may have. And if not, hopefully your first day of Summer Learning Academy is great, and enjoy your rest of your week of learning, and have a great day.